Some of the first videos I made were about reclassifying a Pokemon as other types, and I had an impulse to make another one, but this time it's going to be about what Pokemon could be electric type. Now, I'm not saying that these Pokemon should be electric type. I'm just saying that if some Pokemon were reclassified as electric type, these are the ones I feel I can make the strongest argument for. These aren't going to be ranked in any particular order, and I might have to stretch some of these, but be that as it may, these are the ones I think that you can make a case for to be an electric type. If you enjoy Pokemon theory videos like this, then please consider like, sharing, and subscribing. So let's just hop right into it. Hardly anything about Goldeen and Seaking indicates it's an electric type. They don't have any Pokedex entries that point to it, they don't learn a single electric type move, and not even their designs indicate they have the slightest chance of being an electric type. But hear me out. The only thing that might warrant a water and electric type is that Goldeen and Seaking have a Lightning Rod as their hidden ability. Lightning Rod draws in all electric type moves to the user and raises their special attack by one stage instead of damaging them. Now, it makes sense for most of the Pokemon who have this ability because they're either electric type or ground type. The few outliers are Alolan Marowak, which I assume has this ability because the standard form has it as well, and Mega Sceptile. But excluding Alolan Marowak, every other Pokemon either resists or is immune to electric type attacks. The only Pokemon who have this ability which have an electric type weakness is Goldeen and Seaking. And the only reason why I could ever imagine Goldeen and Seaking have this ability is because of their horn. I assume that is because it acts as a lightning rod. I could be wrong, but I don't believe it has been stated anywhere that this is the case, but it's the only logical reason I can think of. Regardless, I think it's fair to make them a water and electric type. They can't learn any electric type moves, so obviously they're going to need some if they're going to be electric type, so I'd say they could learn Spark and Wild Charge through level up, and go ahead and slap on the standard electric type moves like Charge Beam, Thunderbolt, and Thunder, which they can learn through TMs. Adding electric type wouldn't just make it more logical for them to have this ability, but it would also boost their viability. A water and electric type would give them access to stab to two types which are great offensively and defensively. Combine that with Lightning Rod, and Seaking could possibly carve out a niche for itself. It'd be more than just another fish Pokemon. It'd be a fish that has the electric type and would probably be viewed as the offensive variant of Lantern. Volbeat is a bug type Pokemon, but I think it's a candidate for the bug electric type, and here's why. First off, Volbeat is literally called the Firefly Pokemon. Fireflies are known for producing light through their own body, a natural phenomenon which can effortlessly be tied to a trait associated with electric types. It already uses its ability to produce light to signal others, as stated in the Pokedex, so giving it the electric type just feels natural. In the Pokemon world, light and electricity can be linked. Just look at Pokemon like the Ampharos line. They are capable of generating light at the end of their tails. With Volbeat's glowing tail behaving in a similar manner, it's not that hard to imagine that it's not just capable of producing light through chemical reactions, but some kind of low-level electrical charge which is fueling its glow. Volbeat already learns a decent amount of electric-type moves: Thunder Wave, Thunder, and a few more. I know simply learning a handful of moves from a different type is not enough to suggest a Pokemon could be that type. However, you could look at it as supplemental material to support the main argument. Why does a pure bug-type Pokemon have access to these moves? Perhaps Volbeat is tapping into the electrical energy stored within its body. Adding the electric type would make these moves feel more natural and thematic. Design-wise, Volbeat's glowing tail could easily act as a power source. Pokemon are mysterious creatures that we still don't know that much about. So for all we know, that light that it is producing is through an electrical charge. If Volbeat were a bug and electric type, it's possible that might be more beneficial for it. Sure, it loses its resistance to ground-type moves, but it gains stab. It also gains a resistance to electric and steel-type moves, as well as no longer being weak to flying-type attacks. And I know you're probably thinking why I don't have Illumise on here. And that's because I don't believe Illumise is capable of producing the same light as Volbeat is. If it is, then I would use the same arguments for Illumise as well, and also make it a bug and electric type. The Porygon line has a great case to be either a normal and electric type, or pure electric type. Porygon and its evolutions are artificial Pokemon created from cutting-edge technology. There are other Pokemon that were created like Mewtwo and Magearna, but I wouldn't call Mewtwo an artificial Pokemon. It was taken from the DNA of Mew, then grown in a lab and augmented to a greater degree. And for Magearna, I guess you could say that it is an artificial Pokemon, but I can understand why there's nothing that suggests it's an electric type, because it was made in the distant past where humans didn't have access to modern-day technology. But the Porygon line were literally created by humans using top-notch technology of the time. Technology and electricity go hand in hand. Computers, machinery, and digital constructs, all of which Porygon represents, are powered by electricity. It makes sense that Porygon, as a digital Pokemon, would harness electricity as part of its makeup. Porygon isn't a creature that evolved naturally in the wild. It doesn't depend on biology like most Pokemon. It can survive within the digital space, and it doesn't breathe. It's a digital being brought to life by code and programming. This can only be achieved through the use of electricity. Now, I do think Normal type is a good type for the Porygon line, but if you think about it, it really stands out compared to the major bulk of Normal types. Normal type Pokemon typically look like some type of animalistic beast or an animal you would see in real life. But what about the Porygon line? They don't look like a beast you naturally encounter, and while they do seem duck-like, their entire physical makeup is the antithesis of what it means to be a biological life form. They owe their entire existence to computers, technology, and code, which were produced by electricity, and without electricity, there would be no Porygon. Porygon 2 is just an upgrade, designed to be more efficient and capable of learning new behaviors, which again ties back to its technological nature. Porygon Z takes it even further. It's a glitchy, corrupted version of the original, an experiment gone haywire. That glitchy behavior feels directly tied to the power surges or corrupted energy flows, which are concepts that are inseparable from electricity. Making them normal and electric type or pure electric type would reflect the very foundation of what these Pokemon are. They're not some type of animalistic beast you would come across naturally in the wild. They are technological beings that were created from the use of electricity. I never thought about how closely associated Nosepass and Probopass are with the electric type until I did some research for this video. They both have the rock type, but I think there's an argument to be made for Nosepass being a rock type, and when it evolves, Probopass becomes a rock and electric type. Both Nosepass and Probopass are heavily inspired by magnetism and electromagnetism. These are fundamental aspects of electricity. For example, Nosepass is based on a compass, always pointing north thanks to its magnetic properties. Magnetism is a direct result of electrical currents, so the idea that Nosepass generates electricity to maintain its magnetic pull is already baked into its design. Then there's Probopass, which takes these abilities to the next level. Probopass doesn't simply rely on magnetism, it actively manipulates it. The Pokédex claims it uses a magnetic force to control its mini noses. This level of control suggests that Probopass generates powerful electromagnetic fields. Without electricity, the concept of magnetism wouldn't make much sense, especially for a Pokemon as reliant on it as Probopass. Even their abilities tie back to this idea. Nosepass and Probopass can have magnet pull as an ability, which traps steel types by manipulating their magnetic properties. Sure, rock types can be magnetic, but the power to control and trap other Pokemon in like this is because of electricity. 2/3 of the Pokemon that have this ability are electric type. And let's not forget their method of evolution. Nosepass evolves when leveled up near a magnetic field, like those found in Mount Coronet or New Mauville. Even their designs reflect their electric potential. Probopass's hat resembles the north and south poles of a magnet, and its mini noses behave the way they do because of its magnetic powers. I don't deny that rock and steel is probably a better type for it to have from a competitive standpoint, but I would be lying if I said rock and electric type doesn't sound cooler. Kling, Clang, and Kling are all pure steel types, but honestly, if there were any other Pokemon that should be an electric type, then it would be them. The Kling evolutionary line is a living machine. They are powered by gears in constant motion. Machines like this don't run on their own. They need energy to operate. And in the world of machines, electricity is the primary source. Whether it's a motor, a generator, or an industrial machine, electricity is at the heart of how mechanical systems could function. The Kling line screams powered machinery, and electricity is the natural energy fueling their constant motion. I mean, it's not directly stated, but that's what it heavily feels like that it's implying. The Pokédex itself makes the connection to electricity obvious. For example, Kling's Dex entries describes gear systems generating energy blasts. And then there's Zap Cannon, a powerful electric type move that it can learn, further reinforcing the idea that electricity is part of its core identity. But it's not just Zap Cannon it learns. It learns all sorts of electric type moves. Thunderbolt, Thunder, Volt Switch, and a Wild Charge, just to name a few. In fact, the Kling line learns more electric-type moves than it does steel-type moves. Even their abilities suggest how closely tied they are to electricity. The Kling line can have plus and minus as abilities that only electric types have. These abilities are based on the core concept of positive and negative charges, which anyone who even has the slightest idea about how electricity works understands that this is the fundamentals of it. When you think about it, these abilities feel out of place for a pure steel type, but make perfect sense when you realize just how closely tied to electricity they are. These Pokemon represent the fusion of metal and energy, the kind of machinery that's driven by electrical power. Making them steel and electric type just seems reasonable, but I can understand why they didn't do this. One of the biggest arguments for major critics of Generation 5 is that a lot of the Pokemon of this generation are homages to Generation 1. The Kling line is said to be a copycat of the Magnezone line, and making them a steel and electric type would further reinforce that claim. The Kling line is as much about electricity as it is about steel. From their design to their abilities to their moveset, everything about these Pokemon screams electricity. And if they were to be included in any other generation aside from Generation 5, then I wouldn't be surprised if they were made steel and electric type. Anyways, that's gonna do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, then please consider like, sharing, and subscribing. And let me know if you agree or disagree. And are there any other Pokemon you think could be an electric type? But I'll catch you in the next one. Later.